Hi there, fifth graders. Today you are going to be learning about something called conflict. On your desk is a stack of papers that looks like this. I need you to get at one, please. Okay. Conflict. So I know some of you probably already know what conflict means. If you're not sure, it means some sort of fight. It doesn't have to be a physical fight with fists. It can be something like a verbal fight. It can be any kind of struggle, like for example, if maybe you're struggling to make a decision, your feelings are hurt, you don't know how to talk to a friend, those things can be considered conflict as well. Okay, conflict is any issue that could happen between one person or another, or one person and themselves, or one person and some kind of outside force. So these are the four types of conflict. Okay, these notes are going to go into your RL section at the end of today. I'll remind you that again. Keep it out right now. Okay, there are four kinds of conflict, okay? I love these notes. I found them online. I think they're really comprehensive. The first type of conflict is person versus self, okay? What that means is self. So person being me, versus myself, okay? So some sort of internal conflict is going to be happening. The picture shows someone who's like confused. Maybe you're not sure what kind of decision to make. You're having an internal battle, okay? It says definition: an internal conflict that involves the struggle between the character and his or her conscience. Okay, we all know, like, you should listen to your conscience. Your conscience helps you make good decisions. So, like, for example, maybe I'm like, I want to rob a bank, but then my conscience is telling me that that's not a good thing to do, that's not good morals, that's not good ethics, it's not a good decision. So I'm like, I want to rob a bank, but I know it's not a good idea. But I want to rob a bank, but it's not a good idea. But I want to rob a bank, but it's not a good idea. Don't rob banks. Okay? That's a person versus self. I'm fighting with myself. Okay, over here you see several examples. I'm going to go ahead and read them to you because it's going to help you in the activity you need to do next. A woman is tempted to steal money from her employer in order to feed her family. She wants to feed her family, but she knows that stealing money is a bad thing. That's an internal fight. That's between her and herself. A man tries to decide whether to stay with his family or move to another state to take a better job. Stay where he is and be happy with his family. Move to another state, get a better job to pay to make his family happier. Okay? Once again, an internal conflict. It's inside of him, internal. A teenager is torn between ditching school with her friends and staying to take a test in a class she is failing. Okay? Once again, I want to do this, but I know that this might be the right decision. Okay? An argument between yourself. The next is going to be, actually, you know what? Let's stop there. Put this down. Okay? In the middle of your table, you see a paper that looks like this. Get it out. Okay? Put your name at the top. It says define each kind of conflict in your own word using the visual notes given to you. Then find an example of each kind of conflict in Bud Not Buddy. So we just taught ourselves about person versus self. So it's down here on the bottom. So go to number 4, person versus self. And on these two lines down here, okay, I want you to define it in your own words. So take a look at this, okay? Reread the definition if you need to. It says an internal conflict that involves the struggle between the character and his or her conscience. And I want you to pause me, and I want you to put it in your own words. Okay, right down here. When you're done with that, press play again. Okay. The next step is it said, when was a time that Bud had to solve a conflict with himself? Okay, you need to look in the book, you need to look in the novel, and you need to find a time when Bud was having a conflict with himself. Maybe he wasn't sure about how to make a decision. Maybe he thought something was right, and he had to argue with himself to decide whether or not to do it. Okay, I want you to tell me about a time that Bud had a conflict in his own mind. The next thing we're going to talk about is person versus nature. Okay, as you can see, it has a picture of somebody running, okay, in a rainstorm. That's nature. An external conflict that involves a struggle between the character and the elements of nature that are beyond his or her control. Okay, external means outside. Okay, me versus something outside of me. Okay, so the forces of nature I have no control over. Examples: a family is stranded in a snowstorm. Snow is from nature. Example, a woman is unable to function because of illness or a condition. Okay, that's a virus that has come into your body and you're fighting it. Okay, but it may be in your body, but it's still external because it's from nature. Okay, it's something you've gotten from nature. A man is stalked by a wild animal in the forest. Okay, that's nature fighting this man. Going ahead, go back to this paper. Person versus nature is number 2. I want you to define what a person versus nature conflict is in your own words. Okay, you're going to define it in your own words. Look at the notes. An external conflict that involves a struggle between the characters and the elements of nature that are beyond his or her control. I want you to put that in your own words right here. Pause me while you do so. When was a time that Bud had to fight against the forces of nature? Okay. This is probably one of the hardest ones, so you're going to struggle. I recommend that you keep looking at your notes. Okay, there is an example in here that's very similar to something Bud had to handle. Okay, when was a time that Bud had a conflict with some kind of force of nature? Okay. The next one we're going to talk about is person versus person. It's on the back, so flip. Okay. Obviously, as you can see here, person versus person means I'm fighting with somebody else. Okay? It is an external conflict that involves a struggle, physical or mental, between two characters in the story. Okay? Physical means either they're going to fight like this, or they're going to fight verbally, maybe would be a way to say that, like mentally, like they're not physically hitting each other, but they're still in a fight. Like for example, if you're in a fight with one of your friends and they're ignoring you, okay, that's a mental fight, but you're still in a conflict with somebody else. It's still an issue. A husband and wife disagree about how their money should be spent. Okay, the two characters in conflict are a husband and wife. Two little boys get into a fist fight. Two boys fighting each other. Okay, a boss fires an employee. Okay, two people they're butting heads. Okay, they're just not getting along. That's a person versus person conflict. Okay, go back to number 1 on your worksheet. You're going to define person versus person in your own words. Okay, if you need to review the definition, make sure you do so. Okay, an external conflict between two characters in a story. Put that in your own words. Okay, pause me while you do that. The next step is when was a time Bud was in a person versus person conflict. This should be pretty simple. We all know the last time Bud fought somebody, right? Okay, look in your novel and write it for me. When was the time that he was in a conflict? Who was he with? Okay. The last one you're going to be doing today is person versus society. Okay, this is the hardest one. It's down here on the bottom, person versus society. Okay, as you can see, it has a picture of somebody facing a judge. We all know that judges are the ones that decide whether or not someone has broken a law. Okay, that's what society is. It's a group of rules. Okay, for example, in our classroom, we have a society. We have a group of rules, right? If you are in conflict with my classroom somehow, whether you don't agree with my expectations, or you're struggling to get along with everybody else in the classroom, that's you versus society. It's you versus a group of people, or a group of beliefs, or a group of expectations, okay? An external conflict that involves the struggle between a character and the rules or laws that govern the society in which he or she lives, okay? A good example of this is racism. Back in like the 1950s and 60s, remember African American, you don't remember, but if you've learned it already, African Americans couldn't go to school with white people. It wasn't allowed. And so African Americans and other whites started standing up to their government and saying like, hey, we want schools to be integrated. We want people to be equal. We want African Americans to be able to go to the same building as white kids, and we want white kids to go to the same building as African American kids. That would be a person versus society. It was somebody or a group of somebodies standing up to rules or laws that were governing them. Okay, examples. A woman is in a hurry and runs a red light. Okay, a red light tells everybody to stop. Okay, everybody in society follows this rule. When you break it, you are in conflict with it. Okay, a teenager breaks a curfew set by his parents. Okay, his parents have set rules. He has broken them. Therefore, it is him versus society. A man stands up for what he believes is right, even though almost everyone else disagrees with him. Once again, like my racism example, someone stood up and said, hey, we're not doing things right. Society needs to change. And that was him in conflict with society. Okay. Looking at number 3, okay, person versus society, okay? Put that in your own words. What is a person versus society conflict? Review the definition if you need to, Okay, it's right there. An external conflict that involves the struggle between a character and the rules or laws that govern the society in which they live. Okay. And then, when was a time Bud had to fight against society? A large group of people, a practice, a living, a belief. Okay, when was a time that Bud was in conflict with the society he was in? Okay, remember, society is not millions of people. Okay, society can be as small as 6 or 7 people. Okay, don't make it harder than it is. Take your time, make sure you do well on this. When you're done, okay, it's going to actually, yeah, let's turn into the tray. I want to look at this. Turn into the tray when you're done.